Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jason Williams, and I'm with my tag team partner, Blake Castetter. We are the Sunday Fun Day guys. Blake, week number 6 in the books. A different week than most in terms of fantasy. We got a lot to cover today, Blake.
We do, man.
Yeah.
Couple big news items this week too. After week 6, heading into week 7 with some trades, we got some injuries, we got players being benched or new players being started, which kind of shocking. Where you want to start?
Let's start with the breaking news. This is hot off the press. It's like the trades that happened yesterday.
Yeah, Mr. Davante Adams heading to his tried and true partner in New York.
Yeah, I mean, to say anybody didn't see that coming, you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind. Let's be honest. I mean, I think it was a foregone conclusion with Devontae, the Raiders in the situation they are, and the Jets pretty much at this point after losing to the Bills on Monday night.
Yep. And then you got Amari Cooper heading to Buffalo.
Now, that one, I guess that one didn't really surprise me a lot because clearly there's an issue in Buffalo in terms of number one receivers. You can't depend on a rookie and then a bunch of slot receivers to essentially, be your guys in the passing game. So I think they needed a true number one, and what they got was a true number one in Amari Cooper.
And at a bottom dollar price because the way that Cleveland restructured his deal previously, making the $11 million a bonus.
Yep.
Buffalo only has to pay, it's under $900,000 to get Amari Cooper.
It's almost like a veteran minimum type of contract, which is good. I mean, great for Buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that impacts things. How do you think Davante Adams impacts the Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard side of things?
Well, I think it's going to affect Garrett Wilson more than Lazard because Rodgers seems to have that rapport with Lazard, obviously, in their Green Bay days. And I think that same thing is going to happen with Adams. So I naturally, if you're looking at the whole team, there's going to be a person that suffers in terms of targets. And we all know how many targets Garrett Wilson was getting. He was leading the league in targets. Well, I guarantee you that won't happen now that Mr. Adams is on the team.
Yeah, 23 in a single game is crazy. All right, so flip the script. What about Las Vegas? Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. What is the departure of Davante Adams due to Oakland?
Nothing.
What about Las Vegas?
It keeps. No, it's fine. It doesn't do for me. Those two are fantasy irrelevant in terms of receivers. I mean, every year there's receivers seem to come and go every year. Obviously, you got your core receivers in terms of who you're drafted, but every year there's probably a handful of receivers that you don't see coming that you end up, either taking a flyer on or free agent. I.e. Puka Nacua last year. Shakur probably this year. We could go Mooney at Atlanta this year. So Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker, honestly, I don't see too much of a bump in them. But actually, the person I see more of a bump in is Brock Bowers, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So then you mentioned Shakir. What about the addition of Amari Cooper? How does that impact Kincaid, Shakir, Coleman?
I don't think it impacts them as much as people would let on. I think Josh Allen has been good about spreading the ball around this year because he doesn't have a true number one. I think it's going to take some time to get him and Amari to kind of get on the same page. So I think for the first couple of weeks, I don't think it'll affect those guys too much, but I think eventually once they get comfortable with one another, I can see targets going down for maybe Shakir and Coleman maybe. Kincaid, again, with the tight end situation and tight ends not getting many targets, I don't see his production changing either way. I think it's just going to stay the same. If 3 or 4 targets here, maybe get lucky and have 6 or 7 in one game, but I don't see too much on the Kincaid side, but the Shakir side, I do see some things in terms of maybe production dropping off because he was getting some targets, man. Josh Allen was a big fan of his. Now, he's always been a fan of slot receivers. If you look at his past and some of the slot receivers he's had, he's always done a good job of targeting them. So, again, I'm not sure how much that's going to change. But, again, with the addition of Amari Cooper, that helps the receiver core out big time.
All right, so heading back to Cleveland, you now take Amari Cooper away from that offense. Does that impact Jerry Jeudy or David Njoku at all?
Well, it should, but they don't have a quarterback that can get him the ball. It should.
He's still their best option to getting them wins, apparently.
Well, according to the Browns, that's the truth. But that's a whole nother show, and we'll let the Cleveland fans deal with that. But in reality, it should be a bump for both of them, especially Njoku. And then, Jeudy, can he stay healthy? I mean, luckily, so far, he's stayed healthy. So he should see some type of a bump in terms of targets. Now that Amari Cooper is not on the team anymore.
All right. Other big news in trade world, Cam Akers back to Minnesota. Second time in as many years that they've traded for Cam Akers, but they released him after last season.
Well, I mean, again, running backs are running backs. So I think people think you can just get them off the street. This trade is kind of a sneaky one because I think this could pay dividends for fantasy folks because you can never have too many running backs. Let's be honest. You can running backs, right? I mean, receivers are more dime a dozen than running backs. So I think this is kind of a sneaky play if you're looking for a bye week filler or maybe a flex. I mean, I don't know how fast Cam Akers will get up to speed, and maybe obviously he knows the offense. So I don't think it should take him that long, but I can see him getting some major time with Jones' injury, status and even injury history.
Yeah, I just have to wonder. I mean, they went out of their way to make a trade to acquire him. I wonder if there's more to the Jones hip injury than they've let on so far.
Could be. I'm sure we'll find that out sooner than later.
And then the Steelers have announced or presumed to announce that Russell Wilson's going to start in benching Justin Fields at 4-2.
Interesting. I'm not. Your caption says Steelers doing Steeler things, benching Fields at 4-2. Like I watched a little bit of NFL Live today on ESPN, and they mentioned some of the throws Fields is not making that are wide open, and I get that, but he's still winning in spite of all that. And you're going to bring Russell Wilson back from essentially not playing in the preseason barely to face the Jets, and that defense is actually pretty good. I think this is a terrible move, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Bengals fan or whatever. I just think you're messing with the continuity of the team, bringing Russell Wilson, and the receivers got to learn. You got to play it different with Russell than you do with Justice. So, man, Sunday night's going to be an interesting game on both sides of the ball. Both
Agreed.
teams.
Yep. I don't understand. I mean, your team is 4-2, and now you're going to mess with what's working?
Exactly. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the old adage. And Mike, I'm surprised Mike Tomlin is doing this, but again, maybe they're looking for more explosiveness, but at the end of the day, it's all about winning. And when you got TJ Watt on your team, you can get by with offense kind of being pedestrian. And not that it's been bad, it's just been what we thought it was going to be, not very explosive. So do you think Russell Wilson's going to add that explosiveness to it? I mean,
I don't see that.
We'll find out. Again, we're going to find out on Sunday. I think if you're going to start him, I think you wait till the right opportunity in terms of a defense that's not very good. I think this is the wrong one to start him against.
Yeah, and from a fantasy perspective, I can't see Russell Wilson being worth a pickup, being relevant.
No. I mean, the
only reason Fields is relevant is because of his legs.
Right. I mean, you got rookies out there, Bo Nix and Drake May, who are actually playing pretty good. So those would be on before Russell Wilson in terms of waiver pickups. But I don't know why they're making this change. Clearly, they see something in the field that Justin Fields is not doing. But at the end of the day, is it about the film or is it about the wins and losses? Because last time I checked, wins and losses matter more than film.
I'm with you. All right, so let's keep moving. We got next up injuries. We got Shaheed meniscus having surgery today, Wednesday, out. Number of concussions impacting things. You got Olave out with a concussion. Marvin Harrison Jr. still in concussion protocol as of Wednesday. And then Pat Surtain Jr. also out with a concussion. Dontavian Wicks, shoulder injury, still week to week. Hammies. I mean, this week there's a lot of hammies. Jerome Ford, Travis Etienne, Dallas Goedert, Tajay Spears, and Evan Ingram. Last-minute addition to the injury report this week, all with hamstring injuries.
Interesting. The hammy is I've actually pulled my hammy really bad when I first went to camp at West Virginia, and I can tell you what, that is a painful injury. I couldn't even sleep on it. So those things could be really bad, especially, running backs maybe could get by, but if you're a receiver, i.e. Dallas Goedert or Ingram, that's going to be a problem. So definitely something to pay attention to. And obviously with concussions are a week-to-week thing. Obviously Pat Surtain being out, I think hurt the Broncos big time because they did. Olave being out and Shaheed being out, that's a huge deal. Shaheed, he's a game changer. That really, he's one of those receivers that at the beginning of the year we didn't talk much about, but he's made a name for himself, not only for the Saints, but also he's fantasy relevant.
He is. Yeah, that Saints offense is depleted. Because Taysom Hill still doubtful. No Derek Carr. Top 2 receivers.
Kamara.
I know. That being said, we got 2 teams on bye this week?
Just 2.
Dallas and the Bears, so not a whole lot of buys to be concerned with, but we still got a lot of players coming back from injury. You set up a new segment for us, Jason. Why don't you dig into this one and lead the way?
Yeah, before I get into my segment, first of all, these are 2 teams that one needs a bye and one probably wants to keep playing. The Bears actually, they played great. I think Caleb is starting to find his way. But Dallas, oh my God, they got mollywopped by the Detroit Lions. That was a butt whooping like I haven't seen in the pros in years. So they got some issues down there. But the good news is, they're on the bye, so we don't have to hear about them hopefully for at least a week. So that's good news. In terms of the new segment, we got a new segment. Blake is right. So we're calling this segment Marry, Date, or Divorce. It's the Sunday Funday Guys version of Keep, Trade, or Drop. So we're going to go through 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and we're going to talk a little bit about tight ends. So I will lead this segment off. I'm going to give you, Blake, 3 quarterbacks, and you're telling me if you're going to marry them, date them, or divorce them.
So what's my level of commitment? What we're trying to figure out here is.
Oh, yeah. Are you all in? Right. Yeah. Are you all in? Or are you dipping your toe in? Or are you just cutting the cord? That's what we're trying to find out right now. So the 3 quarterbacks I've listed are Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, and Baker Mayfield. Marry, date, divorce.
Whew. This one pains me, Jason, because my divorce.
I know it does.
My divorce is a player that I had within my top 5 in my preseason rankings. I just struggle with the consistency of Anthony Richardson. I got to let him go.
Yeah.
Got to move on.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Tough love, man. That is tough love.
You're either right for me or you're not, and he's not right now. You know what I mean? All right, so.
You make a good point.
Although Kirk Cousins, as much as I would like to commit, I'm not ready to commit yet, but I don't want to let him go. So I don't want to drop him to waivers. I will trade him because I'll need to get something back for him. He's starting to turn it on in Atlanta. I know he didn't double down this week against Carolina. That was kind of foreseen. It was expected that he was going to get those big points again, but I knew you were chasing points that wasn't going to be needed this week. And then my Mary, put that ring on Baker Mayfield. He just continues to shine, and boy, that ring will bling on his finger.
Shake and bake, doing big things down in Tampa.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So then I'm going to throw you running backs. Okay. I put together 3 somewhat equivalent running backs. And I need to know, are you going to marry them, put a ring on it? Are you going to trade them? or are you going to divorce them? You got
All
Joe
right, fair
Mixon,
enough.
Josh
Okay.
Jacobs, and James Cook.
Ooh, man, you're the three J's. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna start out with the person I would divorce first, and that's gonna be James Cook. And the only reason I say that is because of what Ray Davis did against the Jets' strong defense, and also the addition of Amari Cooper and also Josh Allen's leg. So right now, where is he ranked in terms of the offensive firepower? Is he? I mean, he could say that he was Josh Allen and then James Cook. Maybe I think maybe he takes a step down, maybe even two steps, contingent on what the passing game looks like with the addition of Amari Cooper. So I am divorcing James Cook. Now, who I'm dating, I think it has to be Josh Jacobs. Now, this is a tough one because I like both Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs. I think because of Green Bay's offense and their propensity to throw the ball, to your point here, Blake, in our notes, I think Josh Jacobs will get carries, but will he get the yards because they're either up or because they really need him to get those yards? So a lot of it is going to be contingent on if the Packers will score points like that, he's going to get the ball. He's going to have his yards, but is he going to score touchdowns? Because Love is throwing all the touchdowns. So you're going to get yards, but are you going to get touchdowns with Josh Jacobs? So I'm definitely dating him. I'm dating him. And then I've always been a fan of this guy, even, Bengals days, Joe Mixon. I mean, I this year, like he was going to be the difference in whether Houston would make the Super Bowl or not. And I still firmly believe that. Now, he's been hurt a couple games and Houston's done okay, but man, you can just see when he's in the lineup, it gives CJ Stroud another weapon. And just what he doesn't need. And he came back at the right time since Nico Collins is going to got hurt, excuse me. So I think he's going to help kind of alleviate the pain of not having Nico because Joe is an all-around back and he can run it, he can catch it. We've seen him throw it. We've seen him have 4 touchdown games in Bengals uniforms. So huge fan of Joe Mixon personally and fantasy-wise, and with that team and with that offensive line and with that quarterback, man, I am definitely putting the ring on Joe Mixon's hand for sure.
You're not afraid of commitment, my man.
No. In Joe, we trust.
All right, so you want to go wide receiver or you want to go tight end?
You know what? I'll do the wide receivers for you, and then I'll take the tight ends. How about
All right,
that?
let's roll.
All right, three wide receivers: marry, date, or divorce. We got Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, and Deebo Samuel. Whoo, man, that's a tough one.
I am going to divorce Amari Cooper. I don't know if a new home, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife.
Whoa.
Let's put it that way. I don't know that
spade a spade.
I don't know if he's going to. He's done well with every quarterback he's had, but is he going to fit in the offense? There's just too many unknowns right now.
Sure.
I will date Devontae Adams. Reunited and it feels so good. He's back with Aaron Rodgers, but there's a lot of mouths to feed, and it's not going to be like it was in Green Bay. So I don't think you can have that expectation. For starters, there's a lot of mouth to feed. Secondly, they're both much older than they were. I will, however, commit to Deebo Samuel. He's been the clear number 1 wide receiver in San Francisco. With the running back issues, I think he's also going to get more carries. I think you can count on him. Sign me up.
Okay, that's interesting. So for Devontae, I mean, how do you think all this is going to turn out? I mean, obviously we don't know, but I'm be honest. You know what? My opinion, I think this is a totally overrated trade. I think the Jets are a little bit better. I don't think it puts them in the contention of an AFC championship. And again, if you've got Aaron Rodgers, what are you competing for? Just to win your division? I mean, they're going to get in the playoffs and get whooped by whoever they would play. That's just my opinion.
I think real life NFL, it helps their team. I think fantasy football, there's too many mouths to feed, and the one person that's going to benefit is Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And I think there's too much hype.
Right. And is even Aaron Rodgers on anybody's team? Let's be honest. Like, is he a fantasy relevant? Like 5-6 years ago, would you have said that? I mean, Aaron Rodgers not being, but is he? I mean, he had a decent game, but stay tuned to that one, folks, because I think it's going to be interesting. And I know Jets fans are excited. All this hype, and I'm like, listen, man. Last time I checked, they didn't have an offensive line, and again, they're playing T.J. Watt this week, so you got to be able to get the ball off to your receivers. You got to have some protection. I'm not so sure this trade is going to work out as they thought it would. Just like the season has not really worked out like most people thought it would, because you do have a 41-year-old quarterback. Let's be honest. That's a little long in the tooth.
All right. So, Jason, married, date, divorce, tight ends. These three players are back, quote unquote. 2 from injury and 1 from non-existence back into existence, possibly. Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, David Njoku.
Can we make it another category? Can we call it speed date? Can I speed date all? Like, I need to interview all 3 of these guys and see if they're worthy. I don't know if I can, honestly. I don't know if I can marry or divorce any of them, because I think they all bring something to the table. So I'm going to say I'm going to date all 3, but it's going to be literally a speed date type of interview. Like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? What do you like? What are your interests? And then we'll go from there. And then maybe I can make a firm commitment to one. But at this point, in this part of the season, if I had to pick one, I guess I would pick Njoku, because of the prospect of him getting more targets now that Amari Cooper is gone. Obviously, I would love to say Mark Andrews. I think we all were married to him in the beginning. And then you're talking about the quickest marriage ever. That marriage lasted about 2 weeks. And we're like, listen, man, we're done. And then you're like, well, maybe we're not after last week. So it's a roller coaster ride with Mr. Andrews. And then there's the unknown about TJ Hawkinson. I mean, we don't know. So TJ Hawkinson is the blind date. Like, how's this going to work? I don't know. I got to meet him first. So a lot of unknowns with these 3 guys. So I'm speed dating all 3 with the possibility of dating one exclusively. Marrying, I don't know about that.
You're not ready to commit? Okay. I can appreciate that.
No. Yeah. You like that answer. That was different. Huh?
Yeah, man. Mix it up on us. All right. So heading into week 7, start and sits for the week. QB version. Who you going with for your start of the week, Jason?
I got Mr. Patrick Mahomes, and everybody's gonna be like, "What? Oof. He hasn't really done anything in fantasy this year." I'm like, but I looked at ESPN's rankings, and he's 18th, Blake. 18th. Let me repeat that: 18th in fantasy rankings. Patrick Mahomes, man. Like, I know the kind of bottom is falling out a little bit, but it's not that bad. So coming off a bye, we know how good Andy Reid is coming off buys. In a Super Bowl rematch against the 49ers, I think Patrick Mahomes puts up similar numbers as he did in the Super Bowl, 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. So my start of the week is Patrick Mahomes.
He was almost my sit of the week. I wish I had seen your list before. I wish I had seen your list before I put mine up so that I could have done it. All right, I'm going with Drake May as my start of the week. And this is kind of a deep one, right? He's not on many radars for starting yet, but played well last week against Houston, 243-3. He'd had some ground production with 38 yards on the ground. Who's he got this week? The Jags. Allowing the most points to quarterbacks, allowing the most passing yards, 276 on average, and allowing an average of 2.3 passing touchdowns per game. I think you got to start any quarterback that's going against the Jags at this point.
I was getting ready to say, I think you can start any quarterback that's been in a movie. You can start Shane Falco, Willie Beeman. start anybody against the next defense. I mean, they are not very good. And ironically enough, I have a little bit of a wager on Mr. May when we get to our Sunday 6-pack. So stay tuned for that one, Fanatics.
All right, let's go. Who you got for your sit of the week?
My sit of the week, I'm staying with the same Super Bowl rematch. I am sitting Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy, again, very underrated quarterback overall and very, very much overrated fantasy quarterback. Had a great game last week against Seattle, but he is going up against his kryptonite, which is the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you look at his stats in the Super Bowl, he threw for 225 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown was to Christian McCaffrey. Now, he's got all of his weapons back, but he doesn't have the most important weapon, and that's CMC. So I think the Chiefs will be able to match up well with the Niners in terms of familiarity. It's almost like playing a division foe because you've played them 3 times in the last, couple years, whatever. And again, Brock's had a great year, but he goes up against the Chiefs, which are his nemesis, his kryptonite, his Lex Luthor, the Superman. So I am sitting Brock Purdy this week against against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Chiefs defense has been solid.
Yeah.
I'm sitting Kyler Murray. I know you can appreciate
right.
that one, like that one. You're not a big fan of his. He's got a tough matchup against the Chargers this week. I've been leaning heavily on matchups and looking more at it on paper. The Chiefs have allowed the 6th fewest points to the quarterback position. They've only allowed 2 QBs to score more than 15 points all season. And as you know, Kyler Murray himself hasn't been that great this year, only scoring 16.8 points in 2 or more games. And he might be without his top weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a risky start, in my opinion.
That's a problem if he doesn't have Marvin Harrison, again, going up against the Chargers defense. And again, everybody thinks I'm a Kyler Murray hater. I am not a Kyler Murray hater. All I am saying is there's a lot of hype and a lot of show for not much production. That's all I'm saying. And again, the injury history, he's been healthy. That's good. So we've seen a big sample size now when he's been healthy. And it just, again, I just don't think he's just been inconsistent a lot. And I think this is a good sit. I mean, week, as far as I'm concerned, it'll probably be a good sit, but that's just me. But again, I'm not hating at all.
All right, let's move on to running backs.
All right, who's your running back this week, Blake? Who you got?
Tony Pollard.
Interesting. All right.
Sir, we got a big week 6 outing against Indy where he went 17 for 93 and 1. He had a couple receptions. I think he didn't have many yards receiving, though. This week he's got Buffalo. Tajay Spears is expected to miss, as mentioned earlier, with his injury. So Pollard, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets 20 touches this week. Buffalo is not good against the run. They've allowed the 2nd most points to the running back position this season. 4 running backs have exceeded 21 PPR points. They've allowed an average of 5.3 yards per carry, dead last in the NFL. With high touches and a solid matchup, maybe Pollard's top 10 this week.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 10 running back. It was one of those backfield situations that we had to shake out, and clearly Tony Pollard is the lead guy. So I think this is a great start this week.
What about you?
I can see him being in the top 10. My start of the week, another guy that I think can be in the top 10 is J.K. Dobbins. Listen, folks, there's sometimes you don't need stats. This is one of them. The Chargers like to run the ball. The Cardinals are 29th against the run. Big game for J.K. this week. That's all that needs to be said.
How you feel about Vidal?
Small sample size, but interesting. I'll just say that.
Well, I scooped him up before the game started with the news that Edwards was going to the IR. So a 4-game window minimum where Vidal might show his worth. And knowing Dobbins' injury history, I thought it was a no-brainer to scoop him up.
No, I would agree. And knowing that the Chargers like to run the ball, and at some point that pounding takes a toll on you. I mean, he's gotten 20 carries or close to 15 to 20 carries every game. So at some point, I would think Harbaugh needs to kind of lighten the load. And if Vidal can do it, I think it's a kind of a sneaky potential flex play. Maybe not now, but sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your sit of the week, Blake?
Buffalo's
Or
running backs.
sits. Yes.
The whole backfield. I don't care if it's Ray Davis, James Cook, Ty Johnson. Don't care. Tennessee's
Thurman Thomas.
Was Thurman Thomas? Oh, yeah, go bring him back. All right. Tennessee's got a top 5 run defense. The addition of Amari Cooper isn't going to impact that at all yet. Yes, James Cook has been good in 4 of 5 games. I also realize that a lot of people spent fab and wasted possible waiver priority on picking up Ray Davis, but this week is not the week. Tennessee is top 10 in the fewest yards allowed, top 5 in the fewest rushing touchdowns, and they've allowed the 6th fewest points to running back position.
Yeah, excuse me. Tennessee's a sneaky good defense. And like I said, well, I'll get more on Tennessee's defense later, but I would agree with you. Tennessee has kept that team in games, but their offense has basically shot them in the foot and kept them out of games. So totally understand your reasoning for sitting James Cook and Ray Davis against Tennessee's great run defense.
Who are you sitting?
Well, I am staying in the same game, Chargers-Cardinals. I am sitting James Conner. And the reason was or is, are we starting to see the beginnings of a timeshare in the Cardinals backfield? James Conner had 19 and 18 carries back-to-back games last week, the last 2 weeks. Only had 7 last week. Now, could that have been because Green Bay destroyed the Cardinals? And even if that was the case of the Cards they're facing a tough D in the Chargers, who are the 6th best against the run, only allowing 97 yards a game. And again, what's that backfield look like now? Is it more of a timeshare? Is James Conner taking a back seat to somebody? So that's yet to be determined. But all I know is you go from 19, 18 to 7 carries, and then you're playing a defense that's good as the Chargers. It makes sense to sit Mr. Conner this week.
Yeah, sit out and wait till you see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, they did spend draft capital on Benson.
Exactly. And he's young, and anytime you got a young running back, they want to get him in.
Start working him in.
Yep.
All right, where you at wide receiver, Jay?
Wide receiver. So my start of the week is T. Higgins. Yes, T. Higgins is healthy. And when he's healthy, he's one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. And notice, folks, I did not say number 2. I said top wide receivers in the NFL with his size, speed, hands, all that stuff ratio. He's one of the best. And over the last 3 weeks, T has had 22 catches on 31 targets. After missing the first 2 games, T is proving why he will command top dollar as a free agent in 2025. By the way, he's ranked higher than Tank Dell, Tyreek Hill, and Brandon Ayuk. Now, the first 2 you can argue, well, you can't argue. They are the number 1 options on those teams. So the number 2 option on the Bengals is ranked higher than the number 1 options on the Texans and the Dolphins. So I am starting with confidence T. Higgins against the Browns this weekend.
With the amount of points the Browns have allowed week in and week out, you'd be crazy not to start T. Higgins.
I agree.
I went a little bit deeper in my list. I'm starting Ladd McConkey. Again, I wasn't a huge fan coming out. I didn't think his tape showed much. He has proven me wrong. Justin Herbert, the Chargers, still haven't passed that much up until last week. This week, they're facing the Cards defense that is struggling and on the decline. Allow the 11th most fantasy points to wide receivers, 22nd ranked based on yards allowed, and they've allowed the 9th most receiving touchdowns this season. Here's where I really think things are starting to shift in Los Angeles. I don't want to say they're going to a pass-heavy offense, but last week, the Chargers passed the ball at a higher rate than they had done all season and chose to do so against the Broncos, one of the league's premier pass defenses. Over the last 3 games, McConkey has averaged 7 targets per game. Again, this week he's got the Cards. So with that, I expect him to have a nice week, maybe even more than 7. But if he gets 7, that's a recipe for a good week.
Yep. That's you definitely dove deep into that. And I watched a little bit of that game. You can tell the Chargers committed more to passing the ball. I think the book is out on them in terms of, hey, this team's going to run it, and they're going to run it. Oh, by the way, they're going to run it more. And I think Harbaugh has to realize when you have a Justin Herbert, you've got to give him opportunities to make explosive plays because you can't continue to be one dimensional and just run the ball in the NFL because teams will, I mean, this is the NFL, everybody's good. So love the fact that they're starting to throw more. That means opportunities for the receivers. So Lad McConkey, one of those guys who can reap the benefits of more of a passing style offense from the Chargers. Now they're never going to get away from the run because that's Harbaugh's field. But in order to get where they want to get, they have to be able to throw the ball, and they got a quarterback that can do that. So definitely some potential upside with Lad McConkey.
You know, what's to be determined still is what impact the Pat Surtain concussion had last week and their passing volume. But maybe they realize they can do it and they want to do it. And against a weaker Cardinals defense, now's the time to do it. I did see the over-under on Justin Herbert was 192 this week.
Oh,
he's only exceeded that, I think, twice this season. But if they do continue on this trajectory, keeping an eye on his over-under would be smart.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said to your point about Surtain being hurt because that essentially changes that dynamic for what Denver was planning to do and what they basically had to do. And I think the Chargers realized that right away and said, okay, we're definitely going to maybe modify our game plan to essentially get the ball in our receivers' hands so they can make plays. If Surtain's out there, I'm not so sure the game goes that way. But again, they're facing the Cards defense that's terrible against the pass. Blake brought it up. Definitely one of those games that if you're the Chargers and your offense in terms of passing, then you can make some, you can make some noise in the passing game this week against the Cards.
I just moved on to our sits section, and it looks like we have agreed that we need to sit the entire starting wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 for the Jets.
I know, right? Listen, Jets fans, we're not hating. We're just being realistic here. So I'll go ahead and start, and I'll let you finish it up. So I am sitting Davante Adams for good reason. Hold your water, folks. I know the Jets fans are going crazy with this trade, and it may pay off. In my opinion, I'm not so sure about that. But remember who the Jets are playing. They're playing the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Blake, have you ever been to a Steelers game in Pittsburgh?
It's kind of like going to a game in Seattle, a game in Kansas City. There's some stadiums that are not advantageous to play in.
Yeah, it's like going into a hornet's nest, no pun intended. And then they start playing Renegade and all hell breaks loose. I've seen it multiple times. And again, did you see what the Jets O-line did you see the Jets O-line struggle against the Bills defense? And now they get TJ Watt? Good luck. And again, remember, Mr. Adams has not played in several weeks. So right now, he's a sit for me until I see production from Davante Adams.
Yep, and I'm in the same boat. I don't know if Adams plays this week or not because of his injury, but if he's out there, you got to sit Garrett Wilson as well. I know he's seen 33 targets over 2 weeks. He's put over 100 yards as a result of those in each outing. But now you enter Davante Adams, and we have got no idea what that impact's going to be. In Pittsburgh, solid pass defense, top 10 in fewest touchdown passes, top 13 in fewest passing yards. And again, you're in Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. He's not going to have time. Just hang tight. Wait until we see how all this shakes out. I know it's tough to sit these guys, but that's our recommendation.
Yeah, I have Davante Adams in one of my leagues. I'm not playing him. I'm playing Jamar Chase, Deontay Johnson, and Christian Watson over him at this point. So I agree wholeheartedly in terms of both of our picks. Garrett Wilson. Now, again, Wilson thing. If you got Garrett Wilson, if you're an owner of Garrett Wilson, it has to be kind of a gut punch a little bit because you were getting finally starting to see the draft capital he was, where he was picked and seeing that return on investment. But now, that look like I think for this game it'll be fine. Maybe I still don't think he's going to produce much, but moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and my sit is with the assumption that Adams plays.
Sure, of course, and it looks like he's trending that way.
All right, let's head on to tight ends. I'm going to start Hunter Henry.
Well,
Hunter Henry, available on a lot of waiver wires still. Week 1 that he had with Drake May, 15% target share, 3 catches, 41 yards, 1 touchdown. This week he's got a great matchup against the Jags. They are awful against the tight end position. They've allowed 21 catches for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns, all 4 of which came in the last 4 weeks. He also got the only red zone target from Drake May. He might be turning into May's outlet as he's getting used to the NFL. I would be more than comfortable starting Henry this week against the Jags.
I've always been a fan of Hunter Henry, and this decision to start him, I think his upside is big time now. And again, we've belabored the point in terms of tight ends and targets. I think Hunter Henry would be one, if you're stashing him, be ready for potentially a major output as he gets more comfortable with Drake May. So I think that's a great start. Now,
where are you at on your start of the week?
In terms of my start of the week, it has to be, in my opinion, David Njoku. Blake, who in the world is catching passes for the Cleveland Browns? Is it Jerry Jeudy? I don't know. But all I know is David Njoku. We sat last year and watched him carve up, I believe, the Jets last year, and he had a great game. And he's back from injury. I think this is his second start of the year in terms of being healthy. At this point, he seems to gain the most out of Amari Cooper's departure. He did have 7 targets last week. And considering the tight end position has been more misses than hits, at this point, Fanatics, why not start him?
I'm with you. I mean, he was a tight end 1 last year, tight end 1 the year before. Got to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially at this situation change.
Exactly. Now, speaking of tight end 1s, I am sitting a tight end 1 that was probably, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th ranked tight end this year, Dalton Kincaid.
He also has a situation change.
Yes, he does. With Mr. Cooper coming into town. 1 touchdown for Mr. Kincaid all year. This guy was supposed to have a breakout year in 2024, and clearly that has not happened. Now that Amari Cooper is a Bill, and he's going up against the Titans D that has allowed the tight end position to top 27 yards only once this year. So I am sitting Dalton Kincaid, major disappointment in terms of fantasy. Again, we can go talk about all the tight ends, but I think this one, out of all of them, probably is the most disappointing considering what Buffalo was bringing back offensively.
I wanted to start Dalton Kincaid. That was going to be my start of the week, and I did a little research. It was going to be my start of the week because the addition of Cooper, hoping that would open things up to have a valid threat in Buffalo. And then I did my research, and Tennessee is absolutely dominant against the tight end position so far this season. So I had to delete it.
and again, it goes back to the point when trades happen. You just like we do with running backs by committee in September, you got to give these trades 2 or 3 weeks to shake out, like the Cam Akers trade, the Davante Adams trade, the Amari Cooper trade. You got to give these trades a little time to shake out because they got to learn. The system should be similar, but they also have to, there's a lot of factors that go in. How does that affect other people's touches and targets? We don't know yet. So, to Blake's point, he was going to start Kincaid, but at this point, I think it's a little bit too early considering what he has not done to make him a star. Now, in 2 or 3 weeks, once we figure out where the targets are going and does Kincaid get open more because people have to worry about Cooper, I think then we can start talking about other factors with Kincaid and also Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson.
So I would also recommend sitting Dalton Kincaid. But my sit of the week is Tucker Kraft. Tough matchup against the Texans defense. They're ranked 3 against tight end position. Only allowed 1 tight end to score more than 7 fantasy points. And on average, the Texans have allowed only 21 receiving yards to the tight end position this season. I know Tucker Kraft has gotten some momentum 2 of the past 3 weeks, but this is not a week to trust him.
Agreed. I think that offense is a receiver dominant offense. I think, every once in a while we'll find a nut in Tucker Kraft and, he'll get a touchdown here and there. But let's be honest, Jordan Love's trying to throw to these wide receivers, and he's got 3, 4 good receivers that he can throw to. So what does that mean for the tight end? Well, that's targets.
Sure does.
Yep.
All right, let's head on to our Survivor segment. You want to kick it off, or you want me to?
I will kick it off.
Let's go.
So Survivor picks for this week. I got the Washington Commanders over Carolina. I mean, Carolina has been a lot more competitive with Andy Dalton, but simply put, the Commanders have Jaden Daniels and the Panthers have Andy Dalton. Plus, the Commanders are at home. They're coming off a tough loss against the Ravens. I expect Washington to beat Carolina this week, and that is my safe pick.
I'm with you.
Now,
that's my safe pick as well. Commanders favored by 8 over Carolina. Daniels has put them in a position to win their division, make the playoffs. He's also proven he can hang with any team in the league, man. Like that game against Baltimore, I mean, it was a one-score game.
And he made some really good throws. It reminds me of when kind of C.J. Stroud took off. Like it was against the Bengals. I'll never forget it. Like everybody was kind of like, And sure enough, Jaden Daniels does the same thing against the Bengals. So I don't know if the Bengals, again, maybe that's something we put a rule in for next year in terms of rookie quarterbacks playing the Bengals. But it seems like when they play the Bengals and they win, they start to really ascend. And that's what you're seeing with Jaden Daniels. So I think this is a no-brainer. Does Carolina potentially keep it close? Do they keep it competitive? Of course, they will. Because, they'll fight. But in the end, Washington is too talented on offense, and Carolina doesn't have the weapons to keep up offensively.
I'm with you, man. Who's your sit of the week? Sorry, your caution pick of the week.
My caution pick, of the week is Philadelphia over the Giants. This is only one of 4 games that are division matchups. And remember the rules, fanatics, about division matchups. We talked about this. Also, have you seen the Eagles? They're kind of a mess, even though they're winning. They got their coaches yelling at fans during the game, which I've never, ever seen on a professional level. Maybe college, but never on a professional level. It's not a good look at all. They won the game, but again, not a good look. Be careful on this one. Something is wrong with the Eagles, and the Giants may be the team that exposed those issues.
They did not look good against the Browns. I mean, they barely pulled that out.
Yeah, they did not. Thumbs up in Philly. And, Saquon didn't have a great game, and Hurts has been struggling. He's been inconsistent. Now, I had him rated high, and he's been very, very inconsistent. I will be the first to tell you that, he's struggling a little bit. So, and then the Giants, listen, they played the Bengals tough. I mean, their defense is much improved. If they get Neighbors back, watch out. Because I think that could be the key in them upsetting Philly.
Maybe Cleveland's figuring something out, and they were able to manage the game better and keep it close. Cincinnati didn't look good offensively against the Giants. I mean, that did not look good on Sunday Night Football. Here comes my caution pick. Caution Cleveland over Cincy. You talk about division matchups. Bengals are favored by 6. They're traveling to Cleveland. It's not cross country. Cleveland has not looked good this season. They just traded away possibly their biggest weapon, but they get Nick Chubb back, and it's a division matchup. I've seen crazier. I mean, the Browns seem to have the Bengals number of late, Joe Burrow's number. I mean, for whatever reason, it's a favored by 6, and it's a high pick this week. Just think twice.
Yeah, I thought about this one too, but I didn't want to put any bad mojo on our team, so I deferred to one of the other division matchups. But yeah, let's be honest, the Browns have had the Bengals number since Joe Burrow's been the quarterback, and I'm not sure how that's possible, but they have. So this is one of those games where, man, again, going to the dog pound, Hornets nest. The Browns are struggling. Everybody's like, all right, you're trading away your assets. That means you're done for the season. That's usually when teams can sneak up on somebody. So it'll be very interesting. And with the Bengals, you're right, Blake. They didn't play well. They won the game, but the roles were reversed. The defense played out of their mind, and the offense struggled a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see which side of the Bengals show up. Or do both sides show up, or does one side show up? And if one side shows up, that can spell some problems for the Bengals when they play the Browns.
The other one that stood out to me, and I almost went with it for my caution pick of the week, and you mentioned it, is when you trade away your star player and then the team steps up. What if Las Vegas upset the Rams?
Wouldn't be that far-fetched.
Not this year.
Not this year. Nothing's nothing's off the table this year. Absolutely nothing.
I got a question for you, Jason.
What's up, buddy?
What's the best way to get your Sunday started right?
Tastes so good when it hits your lips.
Sure does. Sunday fun day 6-pack.
You want to kick it off?
Let's get it started. Yeah. Have you heard of Bub Means?
Who?
Bub Means. You heard me.
Sounds like a YouTube sensation.
No, he's actually a Saints wide receiver. And I'm
Whoa.
picking the over 30.5 receiving yards because no Olave, no Shaheed, no Taysom Hill, and most likely no Pat Surtain Jr. And I know the Denver defense has done a good job of shutting down number one receivers with Pat Surtain, but for some reason, the other teams like to pass on them to the tune of the 9th most pass attempts per game, averaging 34.3 per game. Bub Means is now the number one receiver in New Orleans.
Dude, how can you say that with a straight face? You know what? I think Bub may be some relation to Bobby Boucher. I mean, I'm just calling a spade a spade. It's New Orleans. You got a guy named Bub Means. I've never heard this guy. Man, you're really pulling out some deep stuff today. But I can appreciate it. I don't even know what to say right now. Bub. I'm definitely going to be watching Bub. We got a Bub fan club started. Bub, you're our guy. Ball out tomorrow.
Gatorade. H2O. All right, pick number 2 this week. Houston and Green Bay. I'm taking the over 47.5 points. Jason, what happens when you combine offensive firepower with vulnerable pass defenses?
The over in a shootout.
A shootout, that's right. Lots of points being scored. The over.
Yes.
I'll take it all day. And finally, back to New England for my pick number 3. Hunter Henry, anytime touchdown score, plus 450.
Ooh.
That's a big payday. I like those odds. We already talked
That is
about how
a
the
big
Jags are not good against tight ends. 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. 2 last week to Cole Kmet. 1 the week prior to Mo Alley. And the only touchdown that Dalton Kincaid caught in week 3. May seems to maybe have pumped some life into this New England offense. And like I said earlier, Hunter Henry received the only target in the red zone from Drake May.
Man, plus 450? Man, you can make some cash on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. I like your bets this week, Wait, Start off with Bub. I mean, right away, I like it. Bub. I mean, with a name like Bub, how can you not bet for him? How can you not be really out? Listen, I'm gonna put some money on Bub tomorrow night. I'm gonna root for this guy. I can't wait to see what he looks. I don't even know what he looks like, what his number is, whatever. But I'm all on the Bub train.
I might even do some receptions. I didn't look at the receptions numbers, but if he can catch,
I would assume it's I would assume it's low. I'm thinking 3.5 maybe.
I'll take the over.
Yeah. Well, my bets this week, again, I think they're pretty good. So I'm going to get right into them. I got Tampa and Baltimore, the over. To Blake's point, when you got 2 prolific offenses and a lot of firepower and defenses that are so-so, you're going to have the over. And this is on a Monday night. So this could be one of those classic Monday night games that might not get done until like 1 a.m. because there's going to be passing all over the place. So going to be an interesting game. One of those games that when you saw it at the beginning of the season, you're like, this could be pretty good. Now that we're into the season, you realize, man, this is going to be a pretty good matchup. Maybe the best Monday night game of the year so far. So I'm definitely taking over with Tampa and Baltimore.
I like it. Baltimore's hit the over multiple weeks in a row.
Oh, yeah. So, and then my next two, I got a little rookie flavor with my next two bets. I got Bo Nix, quarterback for the Denver Broncos, over 26.5 rushing yards. Had 61 last week against the Chargers defense. Basically, Bo Nix is their running game. And I would expect him to go over this number, 26.5 for sure. Bo Nix tomorrow night against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints like to blitz a lot, meaning there's going to be some man-on-man opportunities where Bo Nix may want to run instead of pass because he may not be comfortable with what he's seeing. So I definitely think the 26.5 is an attainable and an easy number to hit over Bo Nix rushing yards.
Lock it in.
Yep. And lastly, I got Drake May over half a touchdown this week against the Jags. I couldn't believe this one. And then when I saw what you put in our show this week, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. Like, I have a touchdown against the Jags. Listen, Blake told you everything you need to know about the Jags, not once, but twice. They're terrible on defense. So I got Drake May easily over a half a touchdown. I'm thinking he throws at least 2 or 3, piggybacking off his decent performance against a really good Texas defense in his first start. So Drake May over a half. I couldn't believe it. Half a touchdown? Woo.
Maybe parlay that with a Hunter Henry anytime touchdown.
Oh, no doubt.
Maybe throw a wild card in there and do a Hunter Henry first touchdown scorer.
Hey, that's what you call a double dipping. We like that. We like a little double dipping. And so lastly, I do have a bonus bet, and I'm going to probably do this moving forward. I say, if we're talking about pros, I got to throw one college bet in because you know how big of a fan, Blake, I am with the college football scene. Obviously, love it, played it, whatever. So this week, my bonus college bet is Purdue. The Boilermakers are 27.5-point underdogs against Oregon. Purdue's 5 have no business keeping up with the Ducks. But the Ducks are coming off the huge win against the Ohio State Buckeyes last Saturday night. Great game, like classic game. One of those college football games that you just couldn't turn away from. This all the makings fanatics of a classic letdown game. Big win. Everybody telling you how good you are. Campus is loving you. Yep. It's a trap game. I am taking Purdue in the 27.5 points. Again, classic letdown game by the Ducks. By the way, I actually played at West Lafayette on Purdue's campus, and they don't cut their grass, Blake. Like, their grass is the tallest grass I've ever seen on a football field. And I swear I'm not. You can ask anybody. And I'm not the only one that says this from another team. So their grass is really tall, and the reason they do that is to make that field as slow as possible. And what's Oregon predicated on? Speed. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic that nobody will talk about unless you've ever. I mean, the grass is high. Like, I was like, I literally walked on that field. I was like, did these guys cut their grass? I mean, we could barely. We had some team speed back in the day, but Oregon speed is on a whole nother level. So again, bonus college bet: Purdue plus 27.5 against Oregon.
I'll have to trust you on that one, Jason. I don't know college ball.
That's all right. That's why I'm here, buddy. That's why I'm here.
I appreciate that. I'm sure the fanatics will too. Hey, I got a fun fact for us again.
I love your fun facts. Let's hear it, dude.
Did you know? Well, let's put it to you. Who do you think has more yards from scrimmage? Derrick Henry or Will Levis?
I mean, I would think a quarterback would over a running back just because of the opportunities.
Yeah, that's not the case. That's not the case. Derrick Henry has 704 rushing yards, and Will Levis has 699 passing yards.
So Titans fans, I'm sorry. First of all, is just not producing at the level you probably thought he was this year. That is a fascinating stat, Blake. I don't think I've ever heard that in terms of a running back having more yards than a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that speaks to Derrick Henry's awesome year so far, and that speaks to Will Levis maybe
not being a starter much longer.
I was going to say the jury's still out, but man, that stat makes me. I have some pause after that stat. Again, if I'm a Titans fan, they're probably like, "Yeah, we see it every weekend. We know. You don't have to tell us this. We probably figured that out." But another interesting fun fact. Keep them coming, man.
That's why I did not want to invest in Calvin Ridley.
Oh, good point. Very good point.
All right. Well, that's wrapping it up, man. I think hopefully everybody's joined in on the social medias. The one that's new is the YouTube side of things. We started that this season. So if you're not following us there, do search us up. Sunday Fun Day, guys. Fantasy football is the easiest way to find us. Our logo is front and center. We do this live. We are not answering questions live, comments live, but we would appreciate comments, likes, subscribes, and don't forget, as Braxton would say, to turn on those noties.
Turn on those nobies.
Notifications, so that you know every time we post a new video.
See, I'm showing my age. Noties. Okay. That duly noted.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
That's how that works.
That's how that works. Okay. All right, Braxton, I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for schooling this old man up on some of the lingo you youngins are talking about these days. Man.
Old men, both of us.
Oh, stop it. Anyway, on that note, well, Fanatics, that's a wrap for this episode of the Sunday Fun Day Guys Fantasy Football Podcast. And remember, Fanatics, to make this Sunday your fun day. Sunday Fun Day Guys out. Woo. All right, brother.
Aside from some
I like
hiccups,
that.
that was a pretty good episode.